Hello, home COVID students. This is the period 2 review video. There'll be part 1 and 2. I'm going to try to make this a little better with more gestures and voice inflection than the previous videos, so hopefully you don't fall asleep. All right. Dun, dun. So, I put Europe at the front of this 3-pager. And remember, go to Neo, print out the 3-pager timeline document and take notes on it, hopefully, or create your own. Have fun, draw pictures, use colors. But do something, make sure you're reviewing. If you have time, do more than the videos here and go through the unit files, units 3 and 4, reading the timelines or watching the videos or doing both. Okay, what's the most important date in this time period is 1500 and the Columbian Exchange. Also, the Europeans getting into the Indian Ocean. So we'll talk about all that right now. So there's a Renaissance going on in Europe. Not that important, but it shows a continuing of Greco-Roman thinking and art and stuff like that. Also shows that Italy was a really wealthy place from all their dominance of Mediterranean ocean trade, which really goes into the next point where the Portuguese are out in the Atlantic Ocean going, what the hell? We aren't making money from trade. We got to get our own boating thing going down the African coast. So they've got their Prince Henry School navigation, and they learn map making, and they learn all this stuff, and the charts, and the currents, and the boats. And they head down the coast. And it's very exciting. And this will get them into the Indian Ocean. The first Europeans there, setting up their butthead, crap tone Portuguese trading post empire where they use guns and they charge people the pass. Try to tax all the traders and tell everyone what to do like they're the new big men in town. And they basically added nothing of value other than, they were there. Moving on. This is also the time, Vasco da Gama is the Portuguese guy to do it. This is also the time where Columbus, sponsored by the Spanish, looking also to get in on the Asian trade and get wealth because the Venetians were buying from the Muslims and weren't, all the Asian stuff wasn't getting to places like Spain or Portugal until later at a marked up price. So these guys are looking also for Asian stuff. Notably, Christopher Columbus, he's carrying Marco Polo's flipping book all marked up going, I want some of that stuff. What happens? He gets to the Americas. This leads to the Columbian Exchange. You know about that. Plants, animals, diseases. Who dies like a giant, horrible coronavirus epidemic, but worse? The Native Americans. So, sorry, but it happens. And we got to live with that. Just like we got to live with this stupid flipping virus right now. So, you should watch, like I'd say, I play a John Green Columbian Exchange video. I don't feel like talking about it right now, but that's an important topic, the Columbian Exchange, and one to really remember. More Europe. This is a point where Russia starts to become an empire. Not very important, I don't think, but they overthrow the Mongols, 1450, and then they start expanding and expanding all the way across the Pacific Ocean. The date's not here, but by the 1750s, they are an empire all the way going to the Pacific Ocean. Crazy Russians. Very important is a Protestant Reformation happening in Europe in 1517. So the Catholic Church is very powerful. And this guy, Martin Luther, is like, this is jacked up. The Catholics are selling indulgences. You can buy your way into heaven. That doesn't make sense, and it's not right. So he basically leads a movement that leads to all these new religions, the Protestant religions. And so Catholic Church had been the independent, really only powerful church in Europe that will change, right, with all these Protestant churches. So that's a new thing. And they're going to have some wars. One of them is the 30 Years' War between the Protestants and the Catholics in Germany, showing the politics and the religion combining and Christians killing Christians. What else is happening? So later, I'm going to skip, well, no, just the East India companies are the Dutch and the British right at 1600. So that's a very important turning point date. And basically, the Dutch East India Company is the world's first publicly traded corporation, selling shares to the public to raise money. And so this pattern of corporations will be followed all the way through in history to the present. Scientific revolution. Sticking with the East India companies. They're both going to go into the Indian Ocean, and they're both going to want to control the spices of Indonesia. Who's going to win? Who's going to win? Because they're the buttheads, even though they got the nice hats and stuff. They're really violent. The Dutch. They have to own this history. They were ruthless Europeans killing people in the Banda Islands for nutmeg. Horrible. Scientific revolution is again Greco-Roman philosophy coming back. The scientific scientific reasoning or logical reasoning, using a human mind to figure out answers, not the Bible or just following others. This will then dovetail into the Enlightenment, where you'll have those guys, the main one, John Locke, saying all men are created equal, all men have natural rights, there's a social contract with the government. So that will start here in the 1700s, but it becomes a much bigger deal in the next period. I suck at this. Okay, there's a map showing the conflict with the new Protestants up in Germany, England, things like that, and then more Catholics where they always were in Italy. One thing I want to say about this Protestant Reformation, please remember it leads to a Catholic Reformation where they're going to create missionary orders to spread Christianity to other places, because at this point the Catholics, Spanish and Portuguese, have gotten all over the world, like the Americas, and the Catholic Church is going to take advantage of this and spread missionaries all over the place, converting people. East Asia. The Ming Dynasty is a dynasty that comes out of the Mongol rule. The Mongols will lose power after the Black Death, 1350, and eventually decline completely and be taken by a new Chinese dynasty, the Ming. The Ming they're just another dynasty with Confucian rituals and the exam system, and the emperor claiming mandate of heaven and building monumental architecture like a place called the Temple of Heaven to worship and use, the Confucian rituals and the mandate. The Qing dynasty, these are outsiders from the north. The Manchus are ruling China, and they make everyone get a haircut to prove their power over the Chinese. And the empire expands a bit. Later in the 1800s, this dynasty will be very weak when their Europeans are showing up during the Opium Wars, but that's in the next time period. Tokugawa shogunate. Japan's been feudal with the samurai and the shoguns and all the fighting kingdoms. And then by 1600, the shogunate comes and they unify it a bit. They don't get rid of all the daimyo and all the samurai, but those guys lose their power. They have to listen to the shogun more. But the big new change is these guys are worried about the Christians and the Portuguese and the Spanish trying to take over their countries. So what do? They kick them out just after 1600, killing and torturing Christians and otherwise kicking them out of the country. Brutal, but frankly a smart move. These Christians were taking over the world. Japanese were aware of this, and probably a smart move to kick them out. So that happens in Japan. Go Japan. South Asia. So remember, this is now the Europeans during this time period are coming to Asia. So Europe's interacting with South Asia, with the Portuguese coming in 1500 roughly, and starting off the European attempt to dominate the Indian Ocean trade routes. At this point in time, the Mughal Empire will be around. These are Muslim rulers again, continuing a tradition from the past, like from the Delhi Sultanate. And there's like a chill guy named Akbar that uses religious tolerance to try to unite everyone. He's chill with the Hindus. And then I think it's his grandson, Aurangzeb, is harsh on the Hindus. And what do? They're like, screw you, Aurangzeb, we're not cooperating. So it kind of proves, arguably, that Akbar had the better way to rule. Sikhism, it says 1469. So this Guru Nanak is like, hey, we got two religions. Why not have a third one where we combine the best of them all? So we won't cut our hair. We'll wear swords. We'll wear these huge turbans so that later they mistake us for Muslims. But that's okay. It's a cool new religion. One God, but combining Hindu spiritual stuff as well. And that's 1469. And there's a word for that. It's called syncretic, a blended religion. So the Portuguese are here first in the 1500s, and they control some trade towns in India. By 1600, it's going to be the British East India Company getting some trade towns in India. And this is going to lead to a slow creep and takeover by the British so that by 1850, India is a full-blown British colony. Please remember the key trade product out of India is cotton textiles. Our friends down in Southeast Asia are getting worked over by the Portuguese, the Dutch, and the British. Mostly the Dutch. Portuguese get there first. They want to control the spices and buy them and all that, and they do to a degree. But then the Dutch and the British come, and the Dutch just really use their weapons and just want to force everyone to basically take the stuff from everyone, trade on the Dutch terms. They take over the Banda Islands, the nutmeg. And the Dutch will continue on to dominate Indonesia and the whole area all the way into the 1800s. I don't think Indonesia gets independence from the Dutch until the 1900s. There's also a Spanish colony in the Philippines starting in 1565 until 1898. And they are here to have a trade hub with their silver trade going into China. I'm going to stop this video and go to part 2. Thank you.